Hello everyone, how's it going? So I 100% Life is Strange double exposure. This is the early access edition, which cost $87. Dear God, it's expensive. And it gives you access to the first 2 episodes, including a bunch of cosmetic stuff. And yeah, I 100% the episodes. I saw every major decision, both outcomes. I got all the collectibles, so I 100%ed. Now, I usually put in primarily gameplay footage within these reviews, but I'm going to try and limit the amount of spoilers if I can. I am obviously going to have to discuss certain story elements for the sake of the review, but this is in a way to try and explain whether it's worth the cost and whether you should invest into it early on in order to see what happens, or probably wait until it's a sale, or maybe when the full game comes out on October 29th. So, like I said, this is only the first 2 episodes. So, I did 100% every major Life is Strange game, including Tell Me Why, Before the Storm, Life is Strange 1, Life is Strange 2, and True Colors. So, and Tell Me Why, the spin-off series. But this is the first time we saw a returning protagonist within the Life is Strange franchise, with the OG Max Caulfield returning for another round. Now, the central focus here is a murder mystery, and one of the major aspects of the Life is Strange series has been powers. So Max hasn't had her powers since the original game. She lost access to them, but now she has gained access to a new evolved version of her powers. This time she's able to travel between timelines. So the timelines are separated between life and death. And basically it's a murder mystery where one of the characters die, and she goes between 2 timelines where the person's alive and the person is dead, separated between a sun and a moon, and even the coloration matches that, with the moon world being more blue and the live world being more orange. So she travels between these 2 realities in order to find out what exactly happened. Now, the big elephant in the room is how are they going to handle the big decision of Life is Strange 1, where you decide whether Chloe lived and Arcadia Bay died along with thousands of people, or vice versa. And they just open up with it. They know this was going to be a major story element, so they decide just to open right up about what exactly happened. And it's up to the player to choose. You can choose whether to have Chloe live or die, or whether you were in a relationship with Chloe, or were you just friends. And it's very minimum of how it affects the story. Yeah, there are certain story elements like Chloe's voice between the episodes, or certain interactions within the narrative for the people who survived. But for the most part, they want the central focus to be the characters here and the narrative in this situation. So where is Max right now? Well, she's in a brand new school. She's a graduate student. She has students. She hosts seminars. She's an award-winning photographer. And her brand new friends are a physicist named Moses and a girl named Safi, who is her new best friend. Now, Safi is very charismatic. She's basically like Chloe. She's very outspoken, very nice, but also has a lot of the charisma that Chloe didn't really have in the first game. A lot of people, including myself, saw Chloe as very selfish, arrogant, constantly blames other people for her issues. Granted, Before the Storm did give you more appreciation of Chloe and see why she's the way she is. But Safi is kind of the direct opposite. She's a very likable person. Everyone on campus loves her, and she rarely has anyone who dislikes her, and that's because she dislikes them. So for the most part, everyone loves this girl. Moses is a much more reserved physicist. He's clearly gifted, very intelligent, an astronomer. He loves looking at stars. And, he's kind of awkward, but at the same time, he's not. And Max, she's kind of coming out of her shell. She's a lot more social. She can interact with people. She's not like the isolated kid from the first game. She's a lot more welcoming. She has a much easier time talking to people. And it seems traveling across the country has done a lot of good for her. She now has a much more wide berth of social experiences, so she's not as reserved as she once was. But she also has some ideals that I feel like were infused within the narrative for self-inserts. I'll get more into that. But regardless, Max isn't the same person she was, so if you're expecting that, it's not going to happen. Now, what I did love about the story was the fact that the characters come off as their own people. They're not trying to piggyback on people who've played the first game. There are definitely Easter eggs there, but for the most part, it is supposed to be treated as its own experience. As for the murder mystery, I will say that even though I said the characters are well written in their own retrospective personality, there are some really stupid people within this story. Now, the primary focus of Life is Strange has always been narrative, but I've always felt like the narrative has taken a sharp decline since Life is Strange 3. For those who don't know, I am, like, in Life is Strange 3, after Alex finds out critical information involving her brother's death that she shares with a person who happens to become very, let's just say, weird about it, and then at the same time asked her to go to an undisclosed location that only he knows about alone without anyone knowing about where they're going, and she just goes with them. And I'm just like, are you stupid? You know what's happening. He obviously knows something you don't, and you shouldn't go with him. Then she falls down a mining shaft and hits one of those banisters that are meant to hold up the very earth and survives somehow, and it walks across back to town. It's stuff like that that just starts to seep in, especially in Tell Me Why. And it was just like, this one has similar comedic moments. I get that there are going to be always elements within video games that are there for the sake of gameplay purposes, but it happens so regularly within the narrative here that you stop giving excuses. Like, I'll give a few examples. So within the narrative, there's this teacher. She's trying to break into a cabinet to get a book that's been locked inside. So Max finds a spoon and breaks the lock and gets the book for her. Now, logically, you would say she's a professor. She can get someone who administers this, like who is an administrative assistant or the librarian, to just open the door, because it's right now in the midday. Everyone's at work, which means that the person who's in charge of the library is at work. Get them to unlock it. But she decides to ask Max to break the lock, which is damaging school property. And likely there are cameras everywhere, which also there are no cameras anywhere in a school where a murder just happened, and security looks like like Walmart has better security than this school. It's freaking ridiculous. And she breaks the lock and just walks away. I'm just like, wow, do you just let the students and teachers do whatever they want? But it's blatantly obvious that Max is given special treatment within this narrative, because there's another situation where a teacher is being forcibly ejected from their position for a crime. It's a very serious crime. And while she's leaving, security escorting everything, Max goes into her office and starts rummaging through her stuff. This is an office within a public area. There are literal like art exhibits of their top students within this area. Everyone's walking around. There are literal NPCs everywhere. There's a coffee shop there. It's a public area. And no one decides to say, Max, why are you in this office of this professor who was just ejected from the school premises? Like, there are literal people walking around. Not to mention, like I stated, this is after someone was just recently murdered. There would be heightened security everywhere, but there isn't. Like, no one seems to give a fuck. Not to mention, the cops act like just stupid people. Because the murder, they claim it that it's, I can't say the word, it's the S word. They say they self-terminated. And when you look at the person who is killed, they have a gunshot wound in their chest. Literally, there's a gunshot wound in their chest. There is no gun. They've been sitting on that bench for a very long time because the snow around the area has been melted. And I'm just like, how in their right mind would they think that someone ended themselves in this situation? With no gun. There's no gun, and somehow there's a gunshot wound. Like, anyone with common sense. But of course, yeah, and then there's also another situation where you find out there was an exact same murderer who this person knew, and the same thing happened. And I'm just like, are the cops just stupid? Like, what the hell's going on here? And the last thing, there are two more things that just broke me, and if you still aren't convinced right now, I'm going to explain that. Max breaks into a professor's briefcase, which is locked in the public area. Everyone sees this happen, by the way. There are, like, people everywhere. She breaks in, takes pictures of, let's just say, something damning, and he basically begs her to not send the photo to one of the people that would, destroy his case. He's going through, something right now. I can't say what it is. But I'm just, thinking to myself, Max is a graduate student. You're a full-fledged professor and an accomplished author. No matter what you may think, he is a douchebag, let's just say that. But he's an accomplished author. He has best-selling books. He's a professor at this school. Max was just caught breaking into his stuff. Even if he wasn't a professor, she was caught breaking into someone's private property. Like, he can literally go to the faculty, like the president of the school, who Max is good friends with, which it wouldn't help her in this case, and just say what Max did. And she would be yeeted out of the school so quickly. Like, he would be like, yeah, she broke into my stuff and started taking pictures. Then that are grounds for suspension, at least. But he's the one begging her not to do anything. I'm just like thinking, what the hell is going on here? And the last issue that really just showed me that the writers write themselves into a corner so many times within this narrative is the fact that one of the characters, Moses, he gets caught committing a crime. At first, I'm on his side, but he says something so utterly stupid, and I want to quote this. So he's a black guy, and he says, Max is like, why are you being accused of a crime? And he says, besides that not being true for most of my life. Like, you couldn't be more on the nose if you tried. It's so ridiculous. And you know what happens after the next few sentences? He admits that he did it. He admits to this felony level crime that the cop is just doing his job because he did commit a felony level crime. And the guy is just getting on his high horse this entire time. It's just like, I don't like cops. Thereby, this guy doing his job for a crime that I did 100% commit is completely in the wrong. I'm just like... And his train of thought is so utterly stupid. This guy's supposed to be a genius level physicist, and he can't really understand the thing he did was 100% wrong. And the justification he's given is so utterly stupid that I can't even fathom who wrote this down. Who could side with this guy? Like, after that, I liked Moses before then, but after that, I was just like, dude, you committed a crime. The cop is just doing his job, and they make it seem like the cop is so sinister with, like, dark foreboding music and him acting like kind of an asshole, but he's investigating a murder. Like, even though I think the cops are completely incompetent in this game for not putting the connection between these two cases, between the person who was murdered and a person who was murdered using the same exact situation, and they both know each other, in this case, he's completely in the wrong. And then when Max decides whether she wants to aid the cop or not, he again tries to get off on, like, take the high road. I'm like, dude, you committed a crime. You admit to committing the crime, and the reason you did it was so utterly stupid that I can't be on your side on this. So there are just so many of those story elements that just become very problematic. And I know DEI and a lot of other elements are really prevalent within the video game industry right now, but it's clear that this was an initiative in this game. Now, I'm not here about the same-sex relationship, but that it's just a situation of Max being very anti-male that's really a little weird to me. Like, she was never that way in the original game. She was very default on everyone. She would talk to people the way they interacted with her. But there are several lines within the game that is just really weird that she says. Like, there's a statue of a guy, and she's like, before I didn't like this statue because down with the patriarchy, but now she's kind of come to terms with it. I'm just like, that's a weird thing to say, and I just dismiss it. But then you come to a long stretch of photos of presidents of the school, and all of them are the most traditional white male, you know, people in power that you can think of, you know, like old, white, very grovelly looking. And the last person on the list is literally the new president, Safi's mother, who happens to be the president of the school, and she's like, way to break norms or traditions. And I'm just like, wait, what? Like, the people who made this game, like, actually put that within the game, and they forced this in. Because remember, the presidents of the school, they're the ones who put them within this game. So they purposely put a bunch of old white guys, and then the one Indian person at the end of the line. And I'm just like... And the last thing that just made me kind of just, you know, like... It's starting to get compounded as you play through the game. There is a article showcasing her highlights, which seems like okay, whatever. But Max makes again another comment saying it's such a girl boss move to put that magazine everywhere within her office to show her accomplishments. Whereas I'm almost certain old Max would have seen that as egotistical and very just weird, which is what I saw it as. Granted, the character herself is really well written. She's accomplished. She's well spoken. Nothing against her. I really don't have anything against her. In fact, let's just say something bad really happens to her. But it just seems like a lot of these elements are really compounded throughout the game, and it starts to see like they do have a message within the title. Like, one of the first things that Max does is interact with a girl that she likes. Now, you can either engage in a platonic or romantic relationship with her, but at the same time, I'm just like, so you guys just go out of the gate with a relationship with Max, considering everything that transpired? And I don't know, it just seemed very left field to just force a romance right out of the boat. Granted, there is a chance for you to engage in a romance with a male character. He's kind of a douchebag, but he seems to have interest in Max, and Max can show interest in him. He's nothing like Warden, I believe his name was, the guy who was kind of a stalker. This guy is kind of, he's, yeah, like I said, a douchebag, but he seems to be okay, but also there are elements of the narrative that I can't say for sure. But the way they produce that romance, if it ends up being a romance, it's that it's a slow burn. She talks to him, she flirts with him, Max starts to flirt with him as well, and they flirt back. It's a slow burn, and I like that a lot more. It shows more character development instead of just going right out of the boat and saying, hey, just start flirting with this girl that we just met. Her name's Amanda, and Amanda is cool. I like Amanda, but it's just like, allow it to burn slowly. Allow it to build up, so when you have the choice of whether Max should enter a relationship with this guy or Amanda, it's a much more compelling choice instead of just, putting you right at the deep end and saying just go right for it. And when you do engage with a relationship with her, I don't know, it just, you don't feel it. It's like with Seika and Aloy. It's just kind of really forced out of the door instead of allowing it to flesh out and become more. And I feel like a lot of writers are just pushing this out of the door instead of allowing the romance to build up so it becomes a lot more believable. But yeah, in that situation, I don't know how I feel. It's just like when you start to see it, it's hard to unsee it. And definitely Max does seem like the type of person who's being written by the writer's own personal agenda for certain aspects. But other than that, if I were to give a score for the first 2 episodes, I would give it a 6 out of 10. Like, it's okay, but there are a lot of elements about it that I just simply cannot, overlook, because, like I said, even though I can forgive a lot of gameplay elements about it, there are just so many situations where you can easily dismiss what Max is doing just like that, especially with the idea of just, basic cameras and, adequate security and people just using their eyes or, exercising the most bare bones understanding of how the law works. You broke into my briefcase, Max. I can literally have you expelled for this, or at least suspended. That's what I would have done. I'm just surprised the guy never thought of that. But yeah, in terms of gameplay, it's the same exact thing that we've all been dealing with Life is Strange games. You interact with objects, you make timed decisions. There is something that really annoyed me. Like, there are voice messages and lore documents that you can access through the journal entries. And the thing is, it defaults to either the end or the beginning, so you never know where the message ended or started. You have to have a photographic memory of where it started and ended, or you'll have to read through everything, which I found really annoying. Another thing I did notice was that sometimes the prompt won't work. You would have to double tap certain things in order to get them to interact, or if you clicked on something that was far away and then you immediately walked away and tried to click on something else, it wouldn't trigger until you go back to the original object that you triggered. So if you talked to someone, clicked X to talk to them, and then walked away, you have to go back to them, or you'll be soft locked until you interacted with that person. But other than that, not really much to say about it. I will say that the twists within the game are pretty cool. I did like that, and I especially liked how episode 2 ended, so it has a lot of flair for keeping you hooked, especially after episode 2, so I can't wait to see how that ended. But I really think they should, the game is done. It is. I just hope that later on in the episodes they do address these types of situations where common sense is more prevalent among the characters, and some of the characters like Moses stops getting off his high horse and Max actually calls him out on his bullshit. Like, seriously, Max, the guy committed a felony. You should call him out on that, or exercise common sense about what happened at the end of episode 2. I was like, Max, use your words. Like, why would you do this if it would be that detrimental to your own personal safety? Like that, it was just like, if you play this or you watch episode 2, you'll understand what I'm saying. I'm trying really hard not to explain it, but yeah, that's what I kind of think about the early access of Life is Strange Double Exposure. Definitely not their best work. Still highlights a lot of problems with the writing, but hopefully it gets better, and hopefully that the ending will be worth it, because I really hope they don't pull another Life is Strange True Colors where the characters just do stupid things for the sake of story convenience. But it generally seems like that's going to be a thing. But let's hope and we'll see. Till then, thanks for watching. Bye.